ocean, we were heading south. All alone and on the run. Across the ocean for an island in the sun. Where does she hide? Where do we lie? Where do we find an island in the sun? Welcome all the Cherry Cove Yacht Club members for our presentation on the history of the Cove and the history of the club. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Diane Wilkinson.
Thank you very much, Charlie. I have had the very good fortune to have spent probably 80% of my summers in Cherry Cove. Dad was an avid boater and brought his family to Catalina in the late 50s, and we found ourselves in Cherry Cove with mutual neighbors.
I'm Charlie Stockwell. I've been coming to Cherry Cove my whole life, and my grandparents, Lois and Louis Cook, first were on the mooring D7 on their boat Westway. That was before I was born. I've been coming ever since.
And our Commodore asked me to present a history of Cherry Cove Yacht Club. So we're going to go through some slides here and talk about the progression of the club and the place that we hold dear to our hearts, Cherry Cove. We have a real cute slide for you to see here of cocktail hour in Cherry, which is a popular pastime. And you can see Bob Light and his family on the flybridge of his boat in the probably mid-60s. We've got a shot here of the moorings. I believe we have 92 moorings now, maybe 93. And in 1964, my dad had the mooring D6, and we had a Matthews 42. And then my dad bought a Mason 55, and we went out to B18. And then in 1980, my dad's crew, which are his children, all went their separate ways. So he got a smaller sailboat, and he bought A5. So that's my history.
Great. I also grew up on Delta 7 on my mom's boat and the Westway, which was there forever. That was a 1965 Hatteras. Mid-70s, I'd say. My father acquired C6. About 2000, we got a larger boat and moved out to Echo 9 on the California Soul.
Well, our next slide I'm going to have you talk about, because these are some other legacy members and families.
Well, I have a great collection of photographs from my grandfather that we're recently been digitizing, so I was able to pull from a lot of that to make this whole presentation. A few family members in this and a few noteworthy people. My mother is the one on the left. In 1965, she had to be about 14 or 15 there. My aunt and uncle on the right, they both met in the Cove. Some other people, including Barry Goldwater, who ran for president against Kennedy? Good question. Yeah. So now maybe we talk a little bit about the ancient history of the Cove and the original inhabitants.
We have many, many, many middens here on Catalina. So the middens are on Lion's Head and other surrounding promontories. There's a big, big one over at Two Harbors, the civilization of the Tonga people. And they were migratory. They would summer in Catalina and then winter on the mainland.
Very cool. I like this slide a lot. I really like this stitchwork picture I found on the internet showing the natives as they tried to cross the ocean to get out to Catalina. So
I'm very involved with the Conservancy, and they frequently have some native Tonga come and talk about the religion, the way of life, the history, and it's fascinating.
So I guess the next peoples to come along was the late arrivals from the California Gold Rush. For a time, there was mining colonies on Catalina Island. And as I did a little research on it, I found this book called The Lost Mine. And there are some interesting quotes in there. whether there really were gold strikes here or whether it was headquarters for Confederate privateers trying to establish trade routes and stuff to the east. Anyway,
No, that is very true.
Right. So
they would come and offload whatever they were bringing from Asia, and they would store it at Catalina and then go to Los Angeles, pay the tax. So they were only paying a portion because 90% of the cargo was stashed at Catalina. And then they would come back and get it. There's history.
Yeah, we all know that the big building in the middle of the isthmus is a Civil War barracks. Many people have asked, why the heck is there a Civil War barracks in Catalina? In 1864, the Union Army sent 83 soldiers to Catalina Island to secure it and keep Confederate suppliers off the island and trying to prevent them from getting sources of the valuable gunpowder from Asia and other places. So,
one of the very interesting pieces of history about Cherry Cove was the filming of the movie Mutiny on the Bounty in 1934. And the star was Clark Gable. And Clark Gable was also the star of Gone with the Wind. They built replicas of the ships during that time. And there were many, many in the cove. So, fun history.
Yeah, and I think these are a couple of fun pictures here where you can actually see Bird Rock out there. There's Eagle Point in the background. Yeah. So next we got a little clip found on YouTube about the production that shows them in two harbors.
On return from Tahiti, filming continued on Catalina Island with all the stars and ships. Camp Lloyd was built at the island isthmus to house cast and crew. On the east side of the isthmus, the harbor at Tahiti. And on the west side, the piers, docks, and streets of England's Portsmouth Harbor.
Is that the Bounty?
So there's a real cute picture here of the early day scouts in 1934 with the actors that were filming here in Cherry Cove. They also were told to take the pier out for the scouts because the director didn't like that.
Yeah, so I think that's Frank Lloyd with the hat on the right, and I think that's Francois Tone on the left in the officer's uniform. Pretty fun stuff.
The voyage of the Bounty. Still waters of the great golden sea. Flying fish like streaks of silver and mermaids that sing in the night. The Southern Cross and all the stars on the other side of the world.
Yes, Master. The voyage of the Bounty.
We need to mention right away that the Boy Scout camp started in 1923. And this year, 2023, marks the 100th anniversary. We have some photocopies of original material from the first years of the camp in 1923. And we've got a statistic here that shows how many campers, how many badges they earned. And this is 100 years ago. And they used 2.5 tons of coal. Fire the stoves to cook. One thing has remained very constant, and that is the yellow jackets in the summer. And they were plagued by yellow jackets. They slept in primitive tents and ate in an open-air dining hall. They, I believe, landed. Boats came in, and they had to either wade ashore or they came in rowboats and landed on the beach. And then in the 1960s, they used to come in by green water taxi, and they were called the barf boats.
I love this photograph because it elicited such response from you and some of my other family members. Barbara Cook McClanagan being one of them, and that was a quote she would write. She wrote to me in a text message. She's like, "Oh, they would show up so green." And I'm like, yeah. I cannot believe they crossed in that thing. Going back a slide really quick, I just she showed me these photocopies, I just love the pencil drawing of Lion's Head and Shiprock in the background, and Torquay, which was tribe of Torquay, was always kind of the motto of the camp. Well, I know that the peak above Cherry Cove is Mount Torquemada.
Oh.
But I don't believe that's the same Torquemada as the Spanish Inquisition.
No, you know more than me.
Right, so I'm going down a rabbit hole here. I think Torquay was more of a Tongvan word for something, and I'll have to find out more about it, but yeah. So This is a fun picture I found in my father's collections. That's my dad, Randy Stockwell. He has to be 14 or 15 years old. I can tell you, I was never that thin. It's actually his sister on the left, and I'm assuming a girlfriend on the right because they're kind of holding hands a little bit. But, this is in front of the ship, which is located where the Marine Biology Center is now at the camp. There used to be a building that they built a patio, made it kind of look like a ship, and you can actually see the anchor there holding the thing down. But they, I think, also used it as a marine lab or a touch tank, that type of thing back in the day. So, also these I found these two pictures in our collection. One of the old lighthouse and one of the new lighthouse. The old lighthouse was there as long as I remember it. It was made out of corrugated tin, just wrapped around a rickety structure of 2x4s. But you walked right through the center of the lighthouse, which I think was exciting for a lot of kids. It just was like, oh, look up, and you looked around and you got to kind of see this rickety interior structure of that. And I think there was actually a room up there where some camp counselor would get to live. So what happened to that lighthouse, Diane?
It blew over in a winter storm.
Do you remember what year that was?
I don't.
Okay.
I am thinking 20, maybe even more.
Yeah. So anyway, there's the waterfront today where they rebuilt a lighthouse in a more of a craftsman style, which is probably more suiting. And yeah.
But it's iconic.
Yeah.
The lighthouse is to Cherry Cove like the casino is to Avalon.
Well said, yes. And you can see it right there in the logo, which I actually really kind of like, the Camp Cherry Valley logo with representation of the island and the lighthouse in there. So,
well, Charlie's family did a wonderful job of preserving the history of Cherry Cove. And this first picture in 1960 is taken from the east side of the cove looking west. This is the style of boats in 1960.
And I'd say likely to be all wood hulls. So
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And then here in 1965 is a shot taken looking to the east from the west. And that's about where these pictures are taken from, I think. So the last one there of Cherry is in color. So in 1968, color was introduced.
And of course, the boats started becoming fiberglass. So you can see the Westway right in the center there with some of the flags on it. 41-foot Hatteras double cabins. And There's another notable boat in this picture.
Which is,
you tell me.
Matthews, the 42-foot Matthews.
That's the boat with the green top sides
Matthews
there and
green.
the wooden transom. So that was your boat then, right?
That's correct.
You would have been one of those kids on there, so.
You betcha.
That's awesome.
Getting my suntan. Well, part of our history is in 1969, they banded together and formed the Catalina Island Mooring Owners Association. And they even had their own burgee, as you can see.
So really, before it was the Cherry Cove Yacht Club, it was the Catalina Island Mooring Owners Association.
Right.
And why did this really come about?
It was formed to further the interests of the mooring owners.
Where many boat owners like your father had purchased their mooring, it was owned by them.
Yeah. Because they paid cash. Hard as a real estate transaction to purchase a mooring.
About this time, a lot of that was challenged, and most owned moorings became leases under the premise that you can't own anything on the water in California.
And
right. Well, you couldn't own anything below the mean high tide line was the story I always had remembered here.
Yes, private property. And that was finalized in February of the year 2000.
So this Mooring Owners Association was created to collect all the similar owners and try to collectively work their rights out with the state of California.
Yes. So as history rolled on, 10 years later, in 1979, they formed the Cherry Cove Yacht Club. I have some of the original paperwork that was in my father's documents.
So, but these documents, I want to point out, this first one on the left is from 1969. You can see the date at the top, and then 10 years later, they amended their Articles of Incorporation in 1979 to become the Cherry Cove Yacht Club.
Correct. Yeah.
We also have, Diane had a copy of the original 1979 charter that must have been written after that changeover. Or why don't you talk about the signatories?
We have a slide here that shows who some of the original signatories are. This middle page here has Lois Cook, and I know she was the secretary when we were filing these papers in 1979. And then on the right side were the signatories. Many of these people I knew. They were my father's peers, obviously. Jim Davis had Anitra on B1, was a Newport 30. We had Bud Fisher, who is our current Commodore's father-in-law, and Bob Graham just passed away about 6 months ago. His last mooring was, I think, E6 or 7. I'm going to go down to Sam Niles, who had Eden, which was a Elliott 50, and I believe he was on B4. And William Stein's son, Phil, is living and has Phantasma, which is too big for his mooring now. Fred Stevens was another icon in the Cove, and his last boat was Skywave, and I think they were on D4 or so. Milt Valois had Santé. These were movers and shakers in Cherry Cove in 1979. And I personally have known many, many of these people, so this is a walk down memory lane for me. I had a wonderful connection with my dad. This was, like I said, part of my father's papers that I kept. I have one of the original T-shirts. And so this is the old version and the original version of our logo.
And I guess it's a fun fact that the original design for the cherries came from a slot machine, which actually makes sense.
But it also has a truer tie-in, which is that Cherry Cove is named for the trees that grow in the back of the cove. The botanical name is Prunus illicofolia, just to let you know. Then, as we've talked about the progression, in February of 2000, we lost ownership of our moorings. So we decided to rewrite our bylaws, and we moved more towards charity, towards the Boy Scouts. Like I said, we changed our bylaws, and we've got the exact words up there that you can read.
Promote the rights of the mooring subleases in Cherry Cove and create a mutually beneficial relationship with Cherry Valley. I thought that summed it up in a quick sentence and really liked that. So, of course, the hot topic is always, mooring fees. There's one thing you can count on is taxes and mooring fees, right?
Yeah. I have a mooring contract from my father back in 1976, so we paid $5.95 a foot. So we all signed a contract in 2023 for $88 a foot. I can't break even in 2010 at $49. I couldn't break even spending 9 weeks on the mooring.
I did put these other two lines in here just to kind of illustrate year-over-year cost of inflation on the $6 and took it into today's terms, which would have been about $32. And also when they changed the mooring system again in about 2005, I took the cost of inflation from that. So you can see they've had some pretty big jumps over the years.
So we've now got slides that are going to show some of the social activities of Cherry Cove Yacht Club and enjoy our annual dinner, which we had last Sunday night at Long Beach Yacht Club. And then on Memorial Day, we enjoy a BYOB cocktail party on the beach. We look forward to that, provided the weather cooperates. Labor Day, we have had a brunch since 2000. Here's the dinner in the Grove. And this is a fundraiser indirectly for the camp. Tickets run about $100, and we have a 5-star menu. And part of the proceeds go back to the camp. We eat inside one of the little tent camps. So they set up tables, and there's tents all around us.
Well, it looks delicious. I might have to come.
Killer. This is the Labor Day concert, and it started, about 8 years ago, I think. Just a couple guys that play guitar just started jamming together. A lot of fun.
It has been interesting to see this thing grow up to what it is today. This is a light group, I would say. It's a lot of fun, and it's become a real great event. And so here's a little quick video of Dave Barrett playing the Neil Diamond song.
Taking me where I'm bound. Ways tough. I look out to see my baby. Oh, we get moving when the sun goes down. Thank the Lord for the nighttime. Forget the day.
Dinghy Parade is an institution and it started in the 50s. I have an Islander newspaper article to document that. The committee would announce the theme in the morning, and then you had a few hours to come up with an entry. Everybody's a winner, but we have the trophy, and to have your name engraved on the trophy is what you're aiming for. The entries are hysterical, and we enjoy it every year.
So it's about dressing up your boat, dressing up yourself, and following the theme. I found a bunch of pictures and footage from my grandfather's collection, and this one goes back to 1967. Some of the statements that were in the pictures here, avoid the draft, wear pink underwear is one I particularly like. And of course, turn on, tune in, and throw up, I think was a response to Timothy Leary, his book that he wrote about psychedelics and some of that type of stuff. So I'm really thrilled that I was able to find this next thing, which is actually a piece of film from my grandfather's collection, which I put together and turned into a little movie here. So I hope everybody enjoys.
Here they come. Here they come. Here they come, yeah. Well, some are walking, some are riding. Here they come, yeah. And some are flying, some just gliding. Released after years of being kept in hiding. They're climbing up the ladder, run by run. Enter the young, yeah. Now they've learned to think. Enter the young, yeah. More than you think they think. Not only learn to think, but to care. Not only learn to think, but to dare. Enter the young. Yeah, here they come. Well, some questions, some decisions, here they come. And some with facts and some with visions of a place to multiply without the use of divisions. To win a prize and no one's ever won. Enter the young. Yeah, they've learned to think. Enter the young. More than you think they think. Not only learn to think, but to care. Not only learn to think, but to dare. Enter the young. Enter the young. Here they come, yeah. Well, some are laughing, some are crying. Here they come. And some are doing, some are trying, some are selling, some are buying, some are living, some are dying, but demanding recognition one by one. Enter the young, yeah. Yeah, they've learned to think. Enter the young, yeah. More than you think they think. Not only learn to think, but to care. Not only learn to think, but to dare. Enter the young, yeah. Enter the young, yeah. Enter the young, yeah. Here they come. Enter the young, yeah. Here they come. Enter the young.
So this one, I think, was a 1971 Cherry Cove Dinghy Parade, with the theme being the best thing in life. And I gotta say, I love that red glass bar boat or something with all the red balloons to represent a bowl of cherries. I think that's That's absolutely fantastic. I also found this one from 1973, which I think is really fun. I just think it's hysterical. That's actually my aunt there, covered in soap with another boy she doesn't even remember the name of. That's kind of what the island's all about. And I love the sign that says, give donations for a new outboard here as well. So,
to wrap up our presentation, we're going to talk about the history of Camp Cherry Valley. As you know, we have a close relationship with them, but I think this is a wonderful picture of Cherry. We have a history of supporting the Scouts, and at our Labor Day brunch, we solicit donations to be given to the Scout camp for infrastructure and for camper scholarships. I think that this experience really makes a difference in a child's life.
And it's really fun. You see all these kids, they come out in their kayaks and their canoes and their sailboats, but you talk to them and they're like, yeah, I'm from the middle of nowhere and they've never been on the water before. But yeah, it's really neat.
They have Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, and then family camp. Here they are on their way down, probably for a swim.
It's not just for Boy Scouts. It's also, schools do it. Indian guides, YMCA, they stay at the camp. It's a great experience for a whole bunch of other kids. So I always like this one. Remember to dress up for cocktails. Because, this is high fashion here sometime in 1965 or thereabouts. This is actually my grandmother. I'm not sure what she's wearing, but I guess that was the fashion of the day. So
I can do without the horns. I
can do without the horns too, but the kids love it. I gotta say, every time there's kids on board, they're like, "Where's the horn? I gotta push a button on a big boat."
Yeah. Sunset is one of my favorite times in Cherry, and this is a sunrise taken from the camp. It's a beautiful place.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Here's a couple key dates we have for the upcoming events this year.
This is sunset, the low sun in the west, and I love it. I just love the shadows on the water and the feeling the day's done, you're still warm from the sun, dinner's coming, and you're going to sleep well tonight.
Yeah. So, see everybody this summer. Stop by, say hello to Diane and myself and anybody else that's a club member, and I'd like to encourage people to be social. So here's a couple of hashtags to use, and we also have a members-only group on Facebook. But yeah, post your pictures, post your content, and put it out there. I think that works. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Diane, do you have anything you want to say thank you as well?
Oh, it's a privilege to be involved with this.
Great.
I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it, and once this all came together, I'm really thrilled we could put this together and make this a piece of Cherry Cove's legacy, and we'll make this available to all the future members and the public. So.
Wake up Monday morning, the sun is shining, I feel like dying. There's a place that's calling to me. When the weekend comes, I'm on my boat, headed off the coast. Catalina Island's calling me. Island time, gotta get away from the grind. Island days turn into nights. Gotta find a way to get my island time. Sets your soul on fire. Starting in June or July, when the weather's warm and the sun is high, I'm ready to get away. it's summertime every night and day that I stay away. Seems to haunt me in my dreams. Island time, gotta get away from the grind. Island days turn into nights. Gotta find a way to get my island time. Sets your soul on fire. 9 to 5 rolls by and I bide my time on this weekday grind. And I'm waiting to come along. Monday through Friday, come and go along as I sing the song. Waiting for the weekend to get away. Island time, gotta get away from the grind. Island days turn into nights. Gotta find a way to get my island time. That's your soul on fire. Island time, gotta get away from the grind. Sets your soul on fire. Gotta find a way to get my island time. Sets your soul